Esto sí fue amor, por mi parte, lo más lindo, el más grande amor.
Well, there's quite a few to choose from. This one's a fairly obvious one, but I've talked about this nutter too much in the past. And if I'm not allowed to mention the time that Chris Cyborg, because she's not a wrestler, at least yet, perpetually threatened me over social media, I'll go with this one right here. I'm not sure if you can pick that out. It's the Usos. The Usos backstage at Wale Mania this year, because we're very lucky. Wale very kindly invites us to go backstage there, and we try and sneak around and get all the interviews that we can, that we're allowed to, basically. And it's a bit of a negotiation, and, you know, certainly people who work for AEW are really open to getting interviewed with us. Our relationship, let's be honest, with WWE has been a bit iffy in the past, so sometimes we struggle with that sort of thing. So when we were backstage at Wale Mania, and we'd only been there for about 20 minutes, and the lovely lady who was looking after us, whose name escapes me, says, "I've got the Usos for you." I thought, well, that's not going to happen, is it? They're going to take one look and go, "Oh, there's those knobheads from WhatCulture, that's not happening." And they go on stage and they come off, and I think, right, they're just going to go and hang out backstage with all the gang and what have you. And no, here they come, and it's not just the Usos, it's the Usos and Solo Sikoa, and this is, what, a night or two before they fight in the main event of WrestleMania, defending their tag titles? But no, we get it. Two reasons why this is the wildest interaction ever. Number one, watch it back, Solo Sikoa does not take his eyes off me, and normally after we do an interview, a little bit of a spoiler, I'll say thank you very much for chatting to us, and I'll go around and I'll shake everyone's hand, even if they've been a bit nasty to me in character or whatever. Not Solo Sikoa. He just looked at me, and I thought, oh, cool, I guess this is what the look you get just before you die, basically. But then, in the interview, which is just, you know, I say, what a phenomenal title reign you've had, and we talk about their legacy and things like that. And then, simultaneously, Jimmy and Jay turn on me and go, "You're a redhead, we hate Sami Zayn, so we're going to bully you for the next 3 minutes." It is the most surreal, wild, but one of my fondest memories at the same time. I'm just terrified. I got to do the ones with the Usos. It wasn't the way I was anticipating. I thought it'd be all swag, and there's a photo that we took afterwards where I looked a little bit cooler, but in the moment they did terrify me. They are one of the most intimidating trios I've ever met, but yeah, I wouldn't change anything for the world for that. It was wild.
You ever been embarrassed?
Oh, I'm a redhead. I've always been embarrassed.
Damn shirt on too.
You and Sami Zayn,
Well, this is what I was thinking.
Y'all look like relatives.
I was thinking there's a sort of redhead-shaped hole within the bloodline. How oozy would you rate me on a scale of 1 to 10 right now?
A 0, but
lucky to have loads of crazy, wild wrestler interactions. I mean, the one with Haku, for example, and Tama Tonga, where they tried to kill me.
Wait, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? You guys gotta get the hell out of here.
I'm fucking eat busted.
Which you can see on WhatCulture Wrestling right now. But I think I'll go back to the Eddie Kingston one, because that's another video you can see. I think we released it recently as somewhat of a short. But there we are at the first All In at Starrcade. We're, you know, in the convention center, wherever it was, trying to interview wrestlers. And we're talking to Chelsea Green, and all of a sudden Eddie Kingston just decides, oh, I'm going to get involved in this. They tried to interview me, and I was trying to be a professional. I was like, nobody wants to hear from me. They want to hear from you. They want to hear from Chelsea Green. And he's just a good dude. Even then, it was nice, it was funny, it was heartwarming. It was also a little bit like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to handle this situation. And to see where he was then, I think he was in Impact then, or whatever he was doing, Ring of Honor maybe. To see him go from that to what he's doing now, it's just like a cool trajectory, I suppose. And he is a very, very nice guy, and he is a very, very good dude. Without wanting to give too much away, I was able to talk to him very briefly at All In 2022-23, which was almost like a cool full circle moment, and just the way he approaches wrestling. It is the absolute best. But I always remember that, and I don't know why. I think it's probably the first time, because it's 2018, so I've been at WhatCulture a couple of years. It's probably the first time a wrestler had just decided, oh, I know what's going on here, and I'm totally gonna take it over. But, you know, some of the wrestlers do watch the WhatCulture stuff, so you do get to have these amazing conversations that kind of blow your socks off, but that's always one that I remember. I also remember a long, long time ago when I was working in video games, and it was like a video game, I think it was WrestleMania 24, and they had all these superstars in a bar or whatever it was, and we were playing the game. And Randy Orton was meant to be there, and then he didn't turn up for whatever reason. And then I bumped into him, because I guess he was still in the area. That's when I went, hey Randy, how you doing? And he just went, fuck off. He didn't do it in a bad way. He was clearly, it's clearly on his time. It's probably my fault for trying to talk to him. But I was a bit like, I'm glad I got to experience sort of old school Randy Orton, because now I think he's grown and matured, or whichever the right word would be. So that was really, really cool. And actually, this is the last one, then I'll leave you. In WCPW, obviously Bret Hart did some stuff for us, and somebody had to sort of chauffeur him back to his hotel, and I got to do it, which meant I got to have a 25-minute conversation in a taxi with Bret Hart, and that's cool beans.
I have been incredibly lucky through this job to have a lot of ridiculous wrestler interactions, like whether it's between the wrestling promotion that we used to do. Like, I was filming backstage promos with Kurt Angle. I've been ringside camera for Rey Mysterio matches. I've live directed Will Ospreay versus Gunther. It's absolutely ludicrous. And then the rest of the travels that go along with that, of the wrestlers backstage, and having random 1 a.m. McDonald's with Drew McIntyre, like you do. And then all the other stuff, going to WrestleManias and filming interviews and things. It's hard to nail this down to just one. So I'm going to go with 3, and I'm going to go through them as quickly as I can. And I'm going to put links in the little eye thing so you can go see as many of them as you can. So first up, I'm going to go with, in Las Vegas, we were hanging out with Thunder Rosa for the day, like you do. And we ended up in this bar, and then we were drinking mezcal, and then she just completely randomly, completely out of the blue, with no lead up to it whatsoever, just put a song on her phone and just started singing in the middle of the bar, and started singing to Simon Miller in Spanish. And it was a very, very strange moment, and I'll put a link to it so you can go see it. Well, I was going to talk about the Bullet Club block party with Haku when he attacked us, and he completely forgot it was a work, so all of that was legitimately Haku trying to murder us. But we've spoken about that loads, so I'll speak about another random thing that happened with Tama Tonga a little bit later on. Again, this was in Las Vegas. Don't know what it is about Las Vegas, but this was a different Double or Nothing weekend earlier. And we were doing a live podcast at StarCast. And we basically told Tama Tonga to, if he wanted to, just come in whenever he wanted and, just do something, be a bit disruptive, and, kind of go with the flow, see what happens. So we had absolutely no idea what he was going to do. So he burst in to the live podcast, shouting at us from the back of the room, came down, and then he just grabbed me and started choking me out live on stage. Wilborn and Cleary were sat right there. They did absolutely nothing to help me. Grabbed me, pulled me down on the floor, and then just kind of wandered off. And we had no plans for what that was going to be. We just randomly went with it, and that's kind of what happened. The final one was an obvious one. But I've got another one of just stunnering Joe Hendry, Impact star Joe Hendry. I got to get in a ring and give him a stunner at the end of a WCPW show, which was a hell of a lot of fun, let me tell you. But finally was an interview. We were at WrestleCon, and you've probably already seen this interview, but it was Simon Miller interviewing Scott Steiner. And he ended up calling Stephanie McMahon the C word in the interview, and just going on a massive rant about how much he hates WWE. And it was just the moment it happened. You could just see it in Simon Miller's eyes, just holding the microphone, just going, I don't know what to do with this. He was nodding to begin with, yeah, I understand, and then he said it, and it's I don't want to nod to agree with this. I don't know what to do. It's the first time I've ever seen Simon Miller in a kind of state of shock of not actually knowing what to do, because he's very, very good at his job. He's a very professional guy, and that was the first time I'd ever seen him stumped, and behind the camera I was just this is gold. This is something special that we have just randomly captured here. And so yeah, they are a few little glimpses into the bizarre wrestler interactions that I've been able to have over the years, and this job has made me very lucky and very happy to be able to do this.
Michael Hamflett, join the scene, please. Join the scene.
Michael Hamflett, what is
it was with this guy. It was weird.
Sorry about this.
What year was it?
2018.
2018.
Altrincham on fire.
Yes, it certainly was, in the ice hockey arena. So that's a bit of a juxtaposition for you, George R.R. Martin. We went to a New Japan show at Altrincham here in England, and I think it was New Japan's first proper UK tour, or at least their first in ages and ages. And one of the dates they were doing was the Altrincham Ice Hockey Arena. we went to the show just as fans, and we stayed in a lovely Premier Inn.
That was cool.
We had a nice train journey down. I had to convince him that no, we weren't getting the megabus because I would die, and I'm a snob.
I got 5 sausages at the Premier Inn breakfast though, so good trip.
Five's conservative.
And the first order.
Show was great, lots of fun. Tomohiro Ishii versus Minoru Suzuki in the main event. I watched him celebrate like Sunderland had won a cup final when Taichi beat Will Ospreay.
The best wrestler in the world beating Will Ospreay. It was unbelievable.
It was a really fun show. It was really sweaty in the arena. We had a good laugh. We had a good time afterwards. We went and got a Canadian takeaway.
Yeah.
What's that? Chicken nuggets, apparently. But we've kind of parked ourselves in a Weatherspoons pub afterwards. And, well, prior to this, we'd actually had an interaction with the New Japan wrestlers outside their hotel.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing.
You take the wheel.
The wrestlers were getting off the bus, and I was just shocked to see in front of me Kazuchika Okada stood there. And, like, I don't like to bother wrestlers in this environment, but I was just overcome with the excitement. I was like, oh, I really respect you, and stuck out my hand and he shook it back, and I was like, well, I guess we're best friends now. So I took the Austrians as a pretty small place, that's sort of like reasonable to say, and you know, they were only staying in a modest hotel for the night.
It's a Holiday Inn, mate.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I thought, like, you know, this was nice. Let's take that little experience and like go and get a pint and put that to one side. All the wrestlers were clearly going off to go and get food somewhere.
He's Zack Sabre Jr., who I imagine served as kind of like he's English, so you know,
tall guy,
tall guy who you can hang around with because he's in the same company as you. He clearly they booked out this restaurant on like a corner, and they were all like walking there. Zach was taking the group there, blah blah blah, and we were kind of like leaving at the same time, and we all saw them kind of shuffle in to this one specific restaurant.
It's quite sweet. It was like seeing kids on a school trip and with a crocodile, like, two at a time.
At the time, before we got the Canadian takeaway, we were thinking, where are we going to eat? And we were like, that place looks nice. And then all the wrestlers walked in and we're like, no, we won't bother them. Let them have their nice evening. We'll go to Weatherspoons, have a pint and figure this out. So we're sitting on the Weatherspoons, and it looks right down the road that the hotel's on and the junction that the wrestlers' restaurant is on. We're sitting at the window having a few drinks. I think we're looking at like haters on Twitter who'd sent us like insults and stuff for a laugh. Who walks by? Yoshihashi of New Japan Pro Wrestling.
More than once.
And he spends a good 15 to 20 minutes walking past, really confused. Like, all of his friends have gone somewhere. He doesn't know where they are. I don't think he had his phone on him, but he's just walking. He's completely lost. He's clearly missed them when they've left. He's been left behind. No one's gone, where's Yoshihashi? Apart from us, we're sitting in this window watching this guy walk past, and the window's here, and he's here. And we're like, we know where the wrestlers have went. Should we go up to this guy and let him know? Should we just go, hello, guy who has no idea who we are. This is where everyone went. You should go there. Did we do that?
No.
No.
Where's your empathy?
We let this man walk around aimless because we didn't have the confidence to approach him. Keep in mind, he just approached Kazuchika Okada.
So sorry, Yoshihashi.
Okay, Yoshihashi was too much for this guy.
Yoshihashi, I know you're a big fan of the channel. I'm really sorry.
We watched this man fart around for 20, I don't know, however minutes, completely lost, like a little sheep. And then we watched him resign himself to going into a takeaway, coming out with his little order, going back to the Holiday Inn to watch, I don't know, Coronation Street and have a sad wank and go to bed. All because of us.
He had to have a lonely Yoshibashi.
Sorry, Yoshi.
So look, I'll be honest, I've not had loads of wild experiences with wrestlers in real life, and that's probably for the best, to be honest. But there was one. There was definitely one pretty weird and wild in my mind, because I just did not know what was going on, and I froze, to be honest, but we'll get there. This happened when I was working for an events company, and this events company were asked to, like, just build a bar and do a certain thing for like a motorsport event thing that was happening. And do you know who just strutted into this bar one day whilst I was dressed in a stupid suit just looking like an idiot? Goldberg. Goldberg walked in with all his friends, all the little kids were going up to him going, oh my god, you're Goldberg. And he was like, yes, yeah, I am, hey buddy. And he was just being a nice guy to everybody, but I didn't know what to do. I got seriously starstruck, and that didn't usually happen to me really at that point, because we saw a lot of famous people. You saw actors and like music stars and all these kind of people. You just did. It was that kind of job. But seeing Goldberg, it made me become an 8-year-old kid again, and I just stared at this mountain of a man, and my jaw hit the floor, and all the people I was working with realized that I was a wrestling fan, so they went and told Goldberg's friend that I was, and they were like, hey, this guy over here likes Goldberg, and I was like, oh, idiots. But then nothing nothing happened for a while. I started walking around. I had like a tray of champagne flutes that are quite delicate. You're trying your best not to smash them. They've got like alcohol in them as well. And it's like, it's a pretty like stressful situation. And then out of nowhere, a big old paw just lands on my shoulder. I get spun around, and who's there? Goldberg, the man. And he just looks me right in the eye and he goes, "Hey buddy, nice to meet you. You're a fan." And no words came out of my mouth for what felt like 2,000 years. And then eventually I just came out with, "Thank you." Thank you were the words I chose, because I'm an idiot, and that was my moment. That was probably the most famous wrestler I've ever met, and I thanked him for acknowledging that I was a fan of him, because I'm an idiot. But he was nice. He's a nice guy, Goldberg.
I've not actually met that many wrestlers, okay? I've got enough to do a few entries here, but I'll just pick one. I don't really get the opportunity to be nice very often. That's a lie. That's a lie, I do. I just don't really take it. I'm just more of a bit acerbic arsehole, really. But I want to tell the story just to be nice for once in my bloody life and to put someone over who just deserves it, because I thought he was an absolutely sound stand-up guy. Okay. Nowadays, I produce content, podcast #1 in the UK for WhatCulture Wrestling. In the process of my professional career, I have amassed a passable 11.6k followers on Twitter, right? So I'm not saying that if I were to meet this person now, he would have a reason to be, you know, nice to me because I've got influence in the content industry or whatever. But then, at the point I met this person, they had no reason to be nice whatsoever. They just were. So the very quick story is that I'm in the process of joining along with one of my mates who runs a wrestling promotion in Newcastle, the very critically acclaimed North Wrestling. You should check them out. They're doing really well, actually, on the Brit Res circuit right now. So he manages to do like a kind of a support act, if you like, when Chikara toured the UK in 2016, I believe. So North Wrestling had a match on the pre-show, and then we were meant to like do some helping with like the main show, Chikara. I'm an anxious guy who's thick as f***ing shit with technology and virtually anything practical, and for a brief terrifying moment before someone stepped in, I was meant to be doing like the music cues for like the wrestlers coming out, play their music, bell rings, that wrestler wins, play their music, and I was just evidently shitting my pants, right? And who should come over kind of just sensing on a wavelength that I'm just not enjoying it very much, or I'm a bit, you know, anxious about getting it wrong. And Bryce Remsburg, who does not know me from Adam, because if I'm nobody now, I was definitely nobody then, just the nicest guy in the world. Just so encouraging, just warm, just very supportive, I think he came over because he must have realised that it was a little bit of a panic station situation, but he just could not have done more to put me at ease, told us a few fun stories, and this is like, they were deep into a UK European tour that they'd not really done before. And like a lot of the wrestlers there, they were nice, approachable, but like exhausted, like knackered, and he was just fresh as a daisy, really happy, and like a really empathetic dude, and I just wanted to put him over because he was so goddamn nice, and I'll always appreciate that moment. I also got the opportunity to ask AEW World Champion Maxwell Jacob Friedman a question at the press conference at Double or Nothing, and he had this to say.
The only professional wrestling podcast that's actually worth it.
The most insane wrestler interaction I've had. It's not a crazy one. It's not an insane one. It's not a comical, humorous one. But it's just very cool because I had the absolute privilege and honor to host a convention panel with Bret the Hitman Hart. And this was at a time just coming out of the world was just opening up after the pandemic, and so safety and distance was very prevalent, and rightly so. And so the panel conversation itself, I was on one side of the stage, Bret was on the total opposite side of the stage. We weren't exactly close. If you've seen the picture of it, there are some pictures around. There's this big weird gap, and if you're thinking why, that's why. And did the chat for 45 minutes, getting to talk about a whole bunch of my childhood memories, bringing them all back, which is great. And then you do the big send off at the end, where it's like, you know, ladies and gentlemen, Bret the Hitman Hart, and there's big reaction, big round of applause, and expecting Bret to walk off the stage. And he just stood in the middle of the stage, waited for me, and extended a hand. And to me, that was just the coolest, big smiley on his face. That is just the coolest thing in the world. It's so simple. It's so... but it means so much. So that's my wild interaction. It's not wild, but it's something that I will, always holds a special place in my heart. That to get a handshake and a pat on the back and a good job, and attaboy for the excellent execution. Yeah, man. Although I'd actually spoke to Brett a couple of years before that for a magazine I used to work for, and did an interview for a movie he was in with Corey Feldman called Tales from the Dead Zone. And that was the caveat was we couldn't talk about wrestling. That was the PR thing, was can't talk about wrestling. Have to talk about it. Fine, no worries. So did an hour interview talking about film roles, this role, what's coming up, his previous acting work, the theatre work he did, the Aladdin stuff and Lonesome Dove. The interview ends, and then Brett just does do you want to talk about some wrestling? It's like, yes, I do. So off the record, we had an extra hour of just a conversation talking wrestling. A conversation nobody will ever hear, just between me and Bret Hart. It was great, man. It was really good. But there's been some good ones. Got to have some lasagna with Kenny Omega. Got to have a drink with Drew Galloway before he returned back to WWE. Geeking out over Ray Park, as in Darth Maul, with Claudio Castagnoli, Cesaro as he was then. Taking the mick a little bit, playfully poking fun at DDP and DDP Yoga with Christian was a fun one. There was an extremely rushed Vader who was in desperate need to find a bathroom. I've been very fortunate. It's been good. But yeah, the Hitman always gets that wild interaction. It's not wild. It's just something I will forever remember and always put a smile on his face.